Começando mais um vídeo aqui de leitura, com algumas explicações também no decorrer do caminho, né? Eu não sei se você estiver acompanhando esses vídeos, você percebe que eu começo explicando mais e depois eu vou cansando, né? Então é mais ou menos isso que eu proponho. Quando eu começar a cansar muito, talvez eu já esteja cansado, tá? Mas assim, quando estiver muito cansado, eu vou começar a explicar menos, né? Apenas se o livro for tão empolgante que eu sinta que eu devo explicar mais, né? Mas vamos lá. Então aqui, livro The Doors of Perception, As Portas da Percepção. Very good book. I hope so. And is about a person that used drugs. It's kind of a drug actually. It's mescaline. He used mescaline by eating a kind of a cactus from Mexico. Então é um cacto que se você come, você tem alucinação. E essa pessoa comeu, essa pessoa se chama Aldous Huxley. Um cara famoso até, talvez você conheça. Começa no 2 já? Como assim? Já pulando assim, etapas, né? Essas partes aqui. Ah, tá, página 2, né? Tá, vamos lá. It was in 1886 that the German pharmacologist Louis Lewin published the first systematic study of the cactus, to which his own name, was subsequently given. Anhalonian Lewini, nome do cacto, nome científico do cacto, né? Was new to science, to primitive religion and the Indians of Mexico and the American Southwest. Southwest. It was a friend of oh my fucking goodness, long standing. Tô falando aqui que esse cacto já era parceiro deles há muito tempo, tá? Eles já conviviam com esse cacto há muito tempo. E já usavam esse cacto há muito tempo. Então os indígenas de lá, eles tinham seus rituais e eles ingeriam esse cacto. Memorially. Memorially, algo assim. For a very long time. Long-standing. Indeed, it was much more than a friend. Que eu, de fato, era muito mais do que um amigo. It was much more than a friend. In the words of one of the early Spanish visitors to the New World, they eat a root, which they call peyote, and which they venerate as though it were a deity. Então, eles comem uma raiz que eles chamam de peyote e que eles veneram como se, aqui, né? Como se, as though, como se fosse uma divindade. Why they should have venerated it as a deity became apparent when such eminent psychologists as Jainsch, Havelock, Ellis, and Weir Mitchell began their experiments with mescaline, the active principle of peyote. True, they stopped short at a point well this side of idolatry.
Idolatry.
Okay. Oh, wait a second. Ah, ok. Só para não ficar confuso aqui, né? Idolatry. But all concurred in assigning to mescaline a position among drugs of unique distinction. Administered in suitable doses, It changes the quality of consciousness more profoundly and yet is less toxic than any other substance in the pharmacologist's repertory. Masculine research has been going on sporadically ever since the days of Lewin and Havelock Ellis. Chemists have not merely isolated the alkaloid, they have learned how to synthesize it so that the supply no longer depends on the sparse and intermittent crop of a desert cactus. Eles sabem agora sintetizar a mescalina, eles não dependem mais desse cacto, exatamente, porque eles fizeram algo mais artificial, aparentemente, né? Uh, Alienists have dosed themselves with mescaline in the hope thereby of coming to a first-hand understanding of their patients' mental processes, working unfortunately upon too few subjects within too narrow a range of circumstances. Psychologists have observed and catalogued some of the drug's more striking effects. Neurologists and physiologists have found out something about the mechanism of its action upon the central nervous system, and at least one professional philosopher has taken mescaline for the light it may throw on such ancient, unsolved riddles as the place of mind in nature and the relationship between brain and consciousness. Ó, nesse livro aqui, o cara vai narrar o uso, né, dessa mescalina, né? Então, fiquem atentos. Very interesting facts here going on. Their matters rested until 2 or 3 years ago. A new and perhaps highly significant fact was observed. Actually, the fact had been staring everyone in the face for several decades, but nobody, as it happened, had noticed it until a young English psychiatrist, uh, at present working in Canada, was struck by the close similarity in chemical composition between mescaline and adrenaline. Further research, aqui pesquisa mais a fundo, né? Further research revelou, né? That lysergic acid, an extremely potent hallucinogen, hallucinogen,
Hallucinogen.
hallucinogen. Opa, aqui, ó.
Hallucinogen.
Outro ritmo, né? Sorry. Hallucinogen, derived from ergot, has a structural biochemical relationship to the others. O ergot aqui, só uma curiosidade, né? Ele é tipo não é uma erva daninha, assim, né? Que nascia junto com, que se criava junto com o trigo. E aí o que acontecia? As pessoas faziam trigo né, pegavam o trigo para fazer pão. E aí, às vezes, ficava um pouco desse ergot no trigo, quando eles começavam a preparar o trigo para o pão, né? E aí, quando eles comiam esse trigo que estava na forma de um pão, vamos dizer, eles ficavam alucinados. E aí era muito complicado na Idade Média você ser alucinado, porque você era tipo um bruxão ou um cara muito demente, daí ficava. A situação não era boa na Idade Média, sabe? Tudo te levava a ser queimado na fogueira, sacas? E aí você, tipo, começando a ter umas ideias muito loucas ali, assim, meio fritada demais, você eventualmente ia ser morto também, alguém ia te matar. A igreja, né? Then came the discovery of adrenochrome, which is a product of the decomposition of adrenaline. can produce many of the symptoms observed in masculine intoxication, but adrenochrome probably occurs spontaneously in the human body. In other words, each one of us may be capable of manufacturing a chemical minute. Aqui esse aqui talvez seja um minute, né? Tipo minuto, né? Mas eu sinto que isso tem um significado.
Minute.
Minute.
Não, aqui, ó. Extremely small. É esse significado que tá falando ali.
Minute.
Minute. Então assim engana, né? A gente pensa que é minuto. Minute. Mas na verdade não. Minute, minuto. Minute, extremely small, bem pequenininhos. Minute doses of which are known to cause profound changes in consciousness. Certain of these changes are similar to those which occur in that most characteristic plague of the 20th century, schizophrenia. Is the mental disorder due to a chemical disorder? Então aqui é uma disorder, seria uma desordem, né? Desordem mental devido a, due to, a chemical disorder, uma desordem química. And is the chemical disorder due, in its turn, to psychological distresses affecting the adrenals? It would be rash and premature to affirm it. The most we can say is that some kind of a prima facie case has been made out. Meanwhile, the clue is being systematically followed. The sleuths, biochemists, psychiatrists, psychologists are on the trail. Estão no caminho, né, na trilha. O que é esse aqui, sleuth? Oops.
Sleuth.
Someone whose job is to discover information about crimes and find out who is responsible for them. Tipo um detetive, né? Aqui é synonym, detective. By a series of, for me, extremely fortunate circumstances, I found myself, in the spring of 1953, squarely athwart that trail. Não sei que palavra é essa aqui, mas aqui, né? Uma série de circunstâncias felizes, fortunadas, que eu me encontrei na primavera de 53. Squarely, quadradamente, athwart. Essa palavra aí é nova. Tá no beta ainda por cima. Os caras nem tem. Não gosto disso, cara. A pessoa bota num livro uma palavra que não existe no dicionário, eu já fico meio chateado. One of the sleuths had come on business to California. In spite of 70 years of masculine research, aqui, in spite of, apesar de 70 anos de pesquisa masculina, the psychological material at his disposal was still absurdly inadequate, and he was anxious to add to it. Disposal, tipo, o que estava na disposição dele, né?
Disposal.
The act of getting rid of something, especially by throwing it away. Calma, é disposal, jogar fora. Ok. Que parece meio disponível. Mas bota aqui, disposal. Disposição, sacanagem, né? Não, mas não. Aqui fala que a ação de jogar fora alguma coisa, né? Então. Que nem aqui fala waste disposal. Depósito de lixo. Mas é um depósito daí, não é exatamente. No texto aqui tá aqui, né? O que estava disponível para ele, né? Então, beleza. I was on the spot and willing, indeed eager, to be a guinea pig. Basicamente aqui, to be a guinea pig seria como é que é quando você vai testar uma coisa ali pela primeira vez, você é a cobaia. Então isso aqui é o guinea. Como é que eles falam desse guinea? Guinea pig, eu acho. Um porquinho da Índia, né? Esse guinea pig.
Guinea.
Ah, guinea.
Guinea.
Guinea pig? Deixa eu botar assim, guinea pig aqui. É, eles têm esse termo porque... Ó, aqui, né?
Guinea pig.
Guinea. Guinea pig. Beleza. Thank you. E aqui, ó, esse é o significado daquela situação, né? Que pode ser um animalzinho, né, bonitinho, small animal covered in fur with rounded ears, short legs and no tail, often kept as a pet by children. E aqui, sentido do livro mesmo, a person used in a scientific test, usually to discover the effect of a drug on humans. Então daí é a cobaia, né? Thus, portanto, it came about that one bright May morning I swallowed 4/10 of a gram of mescaline dissolved in half a glass of water and sat down to wait for the results. Só que, ó, agora ele usou a droga. Agora vamos ver o que vai acontecer. Agora tudo pode acontecer. We live together, we act on and react to one another, but always and in all circumstances we are by ourselves. The martyr,
Martyr.
martyrs,
Martyr.
martyrs, go hand in hand into the arena. They are crucified alone. Embraced, the lovers desperately try to fuse their insulated ecstasies into a single self-transcendence. In vain. By its very nature, every embodied spirit is doomed to suffer and joy in solitude. Solitude, solidão. Sensations, feelings, insights. Insight seria, né, quando você tem uma ideia. Esse é fácil, na real, né? As pessoas usam esse termo. Fancies, charmosidade, né? All these are private and, except through symbols and at second hand, incommunicable. Communicable? Não sei se fala cable no final, cara. Porra. Ah. Communicable?
Communicable.
Communicable,
Communicable.
Ah, cara, caí na pegadinha do cable, velho. Incommunicable. We can pull... É porque o table é o able no final. Você não fala able sempre. Able. Né? E eu caí na mesma armadilha, sabe? Eu sempre tento me desvencilhar. Incommunicable. We can pull information about experiences, but never the experiences themselves. From family to nation, every human group is a society of island universes. Então, todos os grupos humanos é uma sociedade de universos de ilhas. Most island universes are sufficiently like one another to permit of inferential understanding or even of mutual empathy or feeling into. Thus, remembering our own bereavements and humiliations. Bereavement. Será que estou certo?
Bereavement.
Bereavement.
Bereavement. Bereavement.
Isso foi mais ou menos como eu falei, né?
Bereavement.
Bereavement. The death of a close relation or friend. A morte de algum amigo. Eu sempre clico aqui. Bereavements and humiliations. We can condole with others in analogous circumstances, can put ourselves, always of course, in a slightly Pickwickian sense, in their places. Nos lugares deles. But in certain cases, communication between universes is incomplete or even non existent. The mind is its own place, and the places inhabited by the insane and the exceptionally gifted are so different from the places where ordinary men and women live that there is little or no common ground of memory to serve as a basis for understanding or fellow feeling. Words are uttered but fail to enlighten. The things and events to which the symbols refer belong to mutually exclusive realms of experience. Então, como se percebe aqui, eu não estou muito na vibe de explicar as palavras aqui, porque esse livro aqui é muito difícil. To see ourselves as others see us is a most salutary gift. Salutary tem uma ideia positiva de salute, saudação.
Salutary.
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 Salutary. Cause improvement of behavior or character, causando melhoras no comportamento ou personalidade. Salutary gift. Hardly less important is the capacity to see others as they see themselves. But what if these others belong to a different species and inhabit a radically alien universe? For example, how can the sane get to know what it actually feels like to be mad? Então, como é que uma pessoa sã pode saber como é ser um maluco? Or, short of being born again as a visionary, a medium, or a musical genius, how can we ever visit the worlds which, to Blake, to Swedenborg, or Johann Sebastian Bach, were home? And how can a man, at the extreme limits of ectomorphy and cerebrotonia, ever put himself in the place of one at the limits of endomorphy and viscerotonia, or except within certain circumscribed areas, share the feelings of one who stands at the limits of mesomorphy or somatotonia? I don't know. Muitas palavras aqui de parece que condições médicas, sabe? Não estou muito na pira de pesquisar. Vamos continuar. To be unmitigated behaviorists, such questions. To the unmitigated behaviorists, such questions, I suppose, are meaningless. Meaningless, sem sentido. But for those who theoretically believe what in practice they know to be true, namely, that there is an inside to experience as well as an outside, the problems posed are real problems, all the more grave for being some completely insoluble, some soluble only in the exceptional circumstances and by methods not available to everyone. Thus, it seems virtually certain that I shall never know what it feels like to be Sir John Falstaff or Joe Louis. On the other hand, it had always seemed to me possible that through hypnosis, for example, or auto hypnosis by means of systematic meditation, or else by taking the appropriate drug, I might so change my ordinary mode of consciousness as to be able to know from the inside what the visionary, the medium, even the mystic were talking about. From what I had read of the masculine experience, I was convinced in advance that the drug would admit me, at least for a few hours, into the kind of inner world described by Blake and A.E. But what I had expected did not happen. I had expected to lie with my eyes shut, looking at visions of many colored geometries, of animated architectures rich with gems and fabulously lovely, of landscapes with heroic figures, of symbolic dramas trembling perpetually on the verge of the ultimate revelation. But I had not reckoned, it was evident, with the idiosyncrasies of my mental makeup, the facts of my temperament, training in habits. Onde fica o estresse? Temperament,
Temperament.
temperament,
Temperament.
tem- temperament. I am, and for as long as I can remember, I have always been a poor visualizer. Words, even the pregnant words of poets, do not evoke pictures in my mind. No hypnagogic visions greet me on the verge of sleep. When I recall something, the memory does not present itself to me as a vividly seen event or object. By an effort of the will, I can evoke a not very vivid image of what happened yesterday afternoon, of how the Lungarno used to look before the bridges were destroyed. Used to look before the bridges were destroyed. Of the Bayswater Road when the only buses were green and tiny and drawn by aged horses at 3.5 miles an hour. But such images have little substance and absolutely no autonomous life of their own. They stand to real, perceived objects in the same relation as Homer's ghosts stood to the men of flesh and blood, who came to visit them in the shades. Only when I have a high temperature do my mental images come to independent life. To those in whom the faculty of visualization is strong, my inner world must seem curiously drab, limited, and uninteresting. This was the world, a poor thing but my own, which I expected to see transformed into something completely unlike itself. The change which actually took place in that world was in no sense revolutionary. Half an hour after swallowing the drug, I became aware of a slow dance of golden lights. A little later, there were sumptuous red surfaces swelling and expanding from bright nodes of light energy that vibrated with a continuously changing patterned life. At another time, the closing of my eyes revealed a complex of gray structures within which pale bluish spheres kept emerging into intense solidity and, having emerged, would slide noiselessly upwards out of sight. But at no time were there faces or forms of men or animals. I saw no landscapes, no enormous spaces, no magical growth and metamorphosis of buildings, nothing remotely like a drama or a parable. The other world to which masculine admitted me was not the world of visions. It existed out there in what I could see with my eyes open. The great change was in the realm of objective fact. What had happened to my subjective universe was relatively unimportant. I took my pill at 11. An hour and a half later, I was sitting in my study, looking intently at a small glass vase. The vase contained only 3 flowers, a full blown belly of Portugal rose, shell pink with a hint at every petal's base of a hotter, flamier hue, a large magenta and cream-colored carnation, and pale purple at the end of its broken stalk, the bold heraldic blossom of an iris.
Heraldic.
Heraldic. Not interested to know what does it mean.
Iris.
Iris. Van Ares. Fortuitous, no.
Fortuitous.
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 Of something that is to your advantage, not planned, happening by chance. Acontecendo por acaso que acaba sendo muito bom para você. Fortuitous and provisional. The little nosegay broke all the rules of traditional good taste. At breakfast that morning, I had been struck by the. Não preciso desse fone, né? Lembrando que não estou ouvindo nada, é até bom, né? At breakfast that morning, I had been struck by the lively. Putz, é lively ou lively? Lively. Putz, talvez seja lively. E agora eu lembrei porque eu estou com meu fone.
Lively.
Full of energy, enthusiasm, interesting and exciting. Lively dissonance of its colors. But that was no longer the point. Meio baixo aqui. I was not looking now at an unusual flower arrangement. I was seeing what Adam had seen on the morning of his creation, the miracle, moment by moment, of naked existence. Is it agreeable? Somebody asked. During this part of the experiment, all conversations were recorded on a dictating machine, and it has been possible for me to refresh my memory of what was said. Neither agreeable nor disagreeable, I answered. It just is. Stickkeit. Isso aqui não é uma palavra, né? Isso aqui. Ou é uma palavra? Um sobrenome? Não, isso não existe. Wasn't that the word Meister Eckhart liked to use? Isness. The being of Platonic philosophy, except the plate seems to have made the enormous, the grotesque mistake of separating being from becoming and identifying it with mathematical abstraction of the idea. He could never, poor fellow, have been a bunch of flowers shining with their own inner light and all but quivering under the pressure of the significance with which they were charged, could never have perceived that what rose and iris and carnation so intensely signified was nothing more and nothing less than what they were, a transience. Let me check, please.
Transience.
What?
Transience.
Transience.
Ah,
Transience.
transience. Faz favor, né, o US. Transience. A transience that was yet eternal life, a perpetual perishing. Oh gosh. Holy fucking shit, man. Those words are killing me.
Perishing.
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 Que fala extremely cold, né? Beleza. Perpetual perishing that was at the same time pure being, a bundle of minute, minúsculas, né? Unique particulars in which, by some unspeakable and yet self-evident paradox, was to be seen the divine source of all existence. I continue to look at the flowers, and in their living light I seem to detect the qualitative, qualitative. Oh, gonna listen.
Qualitative.
What?
Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Qualitative. Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Oh my. My mic. It's hurting. My neck's hurting. Qualitative. What? No. Qualitative. Equivalent of breathing, but of a breathing without returns to a starting point, with no recurrent ebbs, but only a repeated flow from beauty to heightened beauty, from deeper to ever deeper meaning. Words like grace and transfiguration came to my mind, and this, of course, was what, among other things, they stood for. My eyes traveled from the rose to the carnation, and from the feathery incandescence to the smooth scrolls of sentient amethyst, which were the iris, the beatific vision, Sat Chit Ananda, being awareness, bliss for me the first time I understood, not on the verbal level, not by inchoate hints. Não, calma aí.
Inchoate.
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 Inchoate. Hints or at distance, but precisely and completely what those prodigious syllables refer to. Beleza, beleza. Treinei, fiz meu treino hoje. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado. Se você viu aí, né? Tem coisas que só dá pra ler mesmo. Você tem que pensar inteiramente. Tipo, esse livro é aquela coisa, né? Doors of Perception. Você tem que pensar inteiramente mesmo. Você precisa estar preparado para ler isso aqui. Não é uma leitura muito fácil. Então, foi do jeito que foi mesmo. Thank you very much.